What's up troops, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and today we're going to be discussing balancing in the Battlefield 1 closed alpha. Now this is going to be an explanatory video but also kind of a feedback video that I hope the devs managed to see, because there's some very key issues that I've noticed that have arisen from the Battlefield 1 closed alpha, in particular the balancing of weapons and some of the problems that are facing us as players. Now although this is my opinion, this is after a good amount of hours and a good amount of what I'd say to be fair judgment across different platforms, and it's just something I've noticed as a whole which is definitely going to need addressing in my opinion before the final launch of the game. Now in today's video we're going to be going over the discrepancies between the two platforms of PC and console, and we're also going to be looking at the new damage model that they've introduced and some of the issues that are arising because of this. I should also point out at this point that I'm very much enjoying the closed alpha and it's been good fun to play, and overall the game experience for me has been rather positive. It's just that being a closed alpha, feedback and constructive criticism is something we need to get across in order for the final game to be as polished and as good as possible. So, let's start off and look at one of the major balancing issues in Battlefield 1. Now, this is a closed alpha product and lots of stuff is going to be subject to change, but one of the biggest problems I've noticed, which has been very much discussed before in previous iterations of Battlefield, is the problem between PC and console. Now, PC and console are balanced the same way in Battlefield 1. PC has the same weapon balancing as PS4 and Xbox One, and as a result of this there are some very clear differences between the platforms that are starting to emerge, and more important, these differences are actually dampening or improving the game experience in different areas. Now, I want to draw a quick comparison on the overall gun types that you'll see in the game, and I'm going to stack them up in terms of how they perform on PC and how they perform on console, more specifically the PlayStation 4 that I've been using. Now this is just a generalization of the weapons themselves, considering I'd say at least 40 hours between the two platforms and a good amount of judgment in terms of my own personal skill set and how I've been playing the game, but also looking at kill feeds and seeing how other players have been maneuvering themselves across the game too. So first and foremost, the semi-automatic category, and this is to do with the medic class and some of the weapons that are available in there. Now this was covered in great depth by a friend of mine, Billy Eatworld, who actually compared the semi-automatics to the DMRs in Battlefield 4, and he made some very good points, and I've left a link down in the description below for you guys to check that out. But one of the fundamental points that he raises, which is very true, is that the semi-automatics are almost accommodating the kinds of players who previously used assault rifles and carbines. None of these exist in Battlefield 1 due to the time frame of the game, and as a result they kind of have a unique feel to play. Now because of this, we even have things like automatic semi-automatic rifles, which sounds very strange, but some of these rifles actually have a fire mode where if you just hold down the trigger button it will fire the semi-auto rounds periodically, almost as though you have a macro key that's being pressed and it just fires at an auto rate. But the biggest issue that has arisen is the effectiveness of semi-automatic rifles on PlayStation 4 and on PC. So to start off with, let's talk about the PC. Now with semi-automatic rifles on this platform, I actually find them to be quite powerful. I quite enjoyed using these weapons because it felt like at medium to long range I was still outgunning some players, and at close range, although it was quite challenging, if I was accurate enough I could actually nail some pretty good kills, and overall I felt that they were a good piece of equipment to use. And I kind of noticed this because lots of other players on PC were also playing the medic class. There were quite a large quantity of them on the platform at the time, and I think that's just because as a whole the semi-automatic weapons on this platform are working and effective. Now flash over to the PS4 and the difference is pretty huge. Semi-automatic weapons aren't used as much. It's very clear and very abundant by the fact that lots of people are picking up SMGs and LMGs, and lots of people are going for the snipers instead, due to the fact that these weapons just feel very weak. And I think the biggest discrepancy that's come out of this is due to the accuracy on PC in comparison to PS4. Now, PC is pretty good to aim on. Using a keyboard and mouse ultimately will make you more accurate, and I noticed that whilst I was recording some semi-auto gameplay on PC, I was nailing headshots upon headshots and getting some pretty good kills due to the fact that I was able to be a bit more specific with my rifle and a bit more pinpoint precise with my mouse. This isn't the case on PS4, and although PlayStation PlayStation was previously what I would consider to be my main platform, and I consider myself to be a very skilled player on PlayStation, using a semi-automatic rifle was a challenge. I missed a lot of shots, and despite the fact that there's a ton of auto-aim, the auto-aim isn't very helpful because it actually drags you towards a player, and you're kind of compensating yourself as well using the analog stick, and you can actually end up missing more shots than landing them because of the automatic aim that they have on consoles. Now, as a result, a clear discrepancy has been made. Semi-automatic rifles on PC are relatively decent, and semi-automatic rifles on PS4 and console are rather weak. Moving on to the SMGs. Now, the SMGs across the board haven't been performing very well. It's due to the fact that they have pretty low damage and are only good for close quarters engagements. Now, I have to relate this quickly to the semi-automatic rifles. On semi-automatic rifles on PC, due to their power and their ability to be quite versatile, SMGs feel very weak on this platform. The fact is that they're getting outgunned in many close quarters to medium range situations by these powerful semi-automatic rifles, and lots of headshots are being made. So as a result, this entire class feels very underrated and a bit underwhelming as a whole. Now, in comparison, the inaccuracy of players on PlayStation 4 when using semi-autos means that the SMGs are actually pretty average. They're pretty good to use, and if you manage to use the auto-aim as well and get things to kind of latch on, you can get a pretty good spray into people and take them down relatively easy. So here another discrepancy has been made. SMGs are quite weak on PC due to the fact that semi-autos are relatively powerful, and SMGs are quite average on PS4 due to the fact that semi-autos are rather weak. So again, another line has been drawn. Flashing on to the LMGs now. Now, on the LMGs on PC, they seem a bit lackluster and a bit underwhelming again, and this is primarily down to the fact that semi-auto rifles are relatively effective. LMGs are good, I do have to say, as a whole across PC and PS4, but specifically on PC, they feel a little bit on the weaker side of things, and even using the Mazden, which is in my opinion is the best LMG in the game at this point in time, it feels as though on PC they're alright, and it feels as though you have to put quite a few too many bullets into a player for them to finally go down. Now flash over to PS4. And on PS4, LMGs are really good and they are freakishly accurate on this game. Now on PC, of course, we have no automatic aim, so if you start missing shots left, right and center with an LMG, you're going to get taken down. Also benefited by the fact that semi-automatic rifles are relatively precise. In comparison, on PlayStation 4, semi-automatics are very inaccurate and LMGs are very accurate and good at medium to long range. The auto-aim allows you to latch onto players and burst lots of quick fire rounds, or just get a very consistent string of LMG fires together, and it feels as though to me that under certain conditions, the Mazden in particular starts to feel a bit like a laser beam even at range, and you can see from some of the LMG gameplay in the video below that killing players at close, medium and long range really isn't a problem when using an LMG on consoles as much as it is on PC, where they feel again a bit underwhelmed. So it's all starting to feel very interlinked here. Semi-autos being powerful on PC means LMGs are quite underrated or underwhelmed. Semi-autos being weak on console makes LMGs feel really good and freakishly accurate, and you also have to accommodate the fact that auto-aim is influencing automatic weapons on console in a very positive dynamic, but in a very strange way making semi-automatic weapons less helpful and less enjoyable as a whole. Finally, we have sniper rifles, and this appears to be the only consistency I've seen to find across the entire game. Now, platform to platform on PC and PS4, sniper rifles are really powerful, but the adoption of sniper rifles is something which is pretty strange. Now, on PC, the adoption of sniper rifles is pretty high due to the fact that mice, you have accuracy, you can be precise and you can have a good time. On PS4 it's a lot lower, but snipers are also equally powerful on PS4, so those who do adopt it and take time to get used to using a control pad are actually doing really well, and I've, in myself, have managed to prove this by picking up a sniper rifle for a good 7 games in a row, and some of these games I was coming out with like an 8.0 KD, and it was very easy for a sniper rifle to be very powerful, and this is also helpful by the fact that semi-automatic weapons on PS4 are very weak, meaning that I can outgun them at range, whereas on PC the precision of semi-autos at range allows them to be pretty more effective against sniper rifles, thus reducing the accommodation and usage of them on PC in comparison to console. Now, lots of this is speculation, and I'm sure DICE have statistics to look at, such as the adoption of these weapons on different platforms, but I'm just going off of what I've seen in my experiences in-game. And it's very clear that the interlinking class system is causing some issues across platforms. The fact that different weapons are accommodating different levels of power on different platforms means that it shifts the entire environment of gameplay. The fact that semi-autos are powerful on PC means that other classes can feel very lackluster, and the fact that they're very weak on PS4 makes other classes seem very good. And it seems that when one of these is out of sync, the entire ecosystem in terms of balancing can take quite a hit as well. So to summarize all of the points that have been made, I've made a quick infographic in terms of the current system of weaponry in the game. This includes the best rifles or best weapons within each category in my personal opinion, and it also includes how they perform on PC and PS4 and the comparison between the two in terms of the amount of players I've seen using them and also the effectiveness of them, whether they're weak, whether they're average, or whether they're good. Now finally, moving on to the damage model, and the damage model in Battlefield 1 has been a challenge as a kind of across the board in terms of what it's trying to achieve and how it's gone about achieving it. Now, at the moment on Battlefield 1, a lot of weapons can feel very... how can I describe it? Feel very unsatisfying when killing people. Now, with a lot of weapons in the game, it feels as though you're sinking a really large amount of rounds into people for them to actually go down. The LMGs could take a good half a mag if you're lucky, bearing in mind that you are going to miss some shots quite naturally. The semi-automatic rifles can take anywhere between 3 good shots to 6 shots if you're unlucky, and it just seems like you're sinking round after round into people and they just don't go down. The SMGs in particular, across both platforms in my opinion, have felt really just not very fun to use. The SMGs on console seem a little bit better because, you know, you're not getting carved down by every single semi-automatic rifle or Montgun AR or anything else that any other player is using, but on PC you're constantly being carved down by semi-autos and it just feels like they're just not a very good class to use. So what is the problem here and what have I identified? Now the problem is that DICE have lowered the damage model. Weapons across the board are producing less damage, specifically in certain fields and across certain ranges, and the reason they've done this is to make the classes more defined. It's very clear, and this is something I personally quite enjoy as a positive of the game, that semi-autos are for a medium range, SMGs are for close range, LMGs are between short to medium range, and sniper rifles are for long range only. And they've made this definition very clear due to the low damage model. You can't get kills with semi-autos at ridiculously long ranges, and you can't get kills with SMGs at ridiculously long ranges either. You have to be within the kind of sweet spot of range in order to get these kind of kills that go down for you. But the problem is that as a whole, the entire experience across every single class is less satisfying, except for, in my opinion, the sniper rifles, where things have been done very well. Now, the reason this is causing problems is because they've made the game feel less satisfying, but the reason it has a call for good things is that it's made the classes more defined. But I can't say that I have a clear solution for this. Now, I personally want semi-automatic weapons to be more powerful, so do I want SMGs to be a bit more powerful, and likewise, the other LMGs that aren't a Mazdan feel like complete shit. So the problem really is that they're trying to find a clear line between clear class definitions and clear weapon enjoyment. Now, a lot of people who have jumped into the game right now are picking up the Mazda LMG, they're picking up the MP18, and they're picking up the Montgun or Montagu semi-automatic rifle, because these are the clearly defined winners of each category that seem to be the most versatile at taking down enemies at different ranges. And the problem is that if you influence the power and you improve the overall damage output across the board, we get a situation like Battlefield 4 where there's no difference between using an M416 or using perhaps maybe an AR-160. The guns feel very similar. It just seems very pointless to have this overall difference between the weapons, and overall if you deleted half the guns out of Battlefield 4, it really wouldn't make that big a deal. But in hindsight, if you don't have the kind of power output across the board, the guns across the board feel very unsatisfying, and this is something I've noticed as a whole. So in my opinion, I feel like they need to mess around with the damage model. I can't say there's a clear solution to this because of course they have the statistics, but in my opinion, increasing the damage model across the board is a good first step, and finding out how they can manipulate that in terms of class to class positions and in terms of engagement ranges is definitely something they need to take a good hard look at. At the moment, the problem is that kills just feel very meh. But at the same token, classes are very well defined. So finding that clear fine line where things are good on both ends is going to be a challenge, but something I think DICE should definitely take a look at. And I feel a lot of people, if they did have access to the closed alpha, would feel very similar to how I do. So guys, that's it for today's video. We've looked at the problems with PC and PS4, and we've looked at the problems with the damage model. And one thing I have to make very clear is that I don't have the solutions to these things. Because, you know, it's a very intricate system and lots of mathematics, and believe me, shit at maths. They really do have a very intricate system here that they have to play with, and as we found out whilst looking at PC and PS4, the ecosystem of each weapon type is very much affected by the other weapon types, so finding that fine balance with all these weapons and variants and things that they're trying to achieve is a hassle, and it's going to be a hard thing to do. But I thought I'd just bring these problems to light so somebody at DICE can have a sit down and look at these and perhaps go, well, maybe he's right, maybe we do need to make, you know, LMGs a bit more effective at a certain kind of scenario as opposed to being too multi-versatile. Well, maybe he's right and semi-automatics are too weak on console, and perhaps we need to divide a clear PC console balancing system where balancing is done differently on both platforms, which in my opinion is the only solution to improving the game across the board, but we'll have to see how that goes down. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon on another video.